The child's legs failed her 6 feet from the threshold. She collapsed face first into the drift on Christmas Eve, 1872. Barefoot, bleeding, her frozen fist still stretched toward a doorknob she'd never reach. 5 years old, no coat, no name a living soul recalled. Inside that solitary Kansas ranch house, Thomas Hale was pouring whiskey into his only cup when he heard it. Not a knock, a whimper. The kind of sound that splits a man open before his mind can name it. He set the cup down. His hand trembled. He didn't know it yet, but his life had just ended. And begun. If this story has already found its way under your skin, take a moment to subscribe and tell us in the comments which city you're listening from tonight. It means everything to know how far Little Lily's story has traveled. Now let's return to that brutal Christmas Eve on the Kansas prairie, 1872, when one whimper changed the shape of a man's world. Thomas stood by the fire a long time before his body moved. He told himself it was wind, told himself the prairie plays tricks on a solitary man, makes him hear children where there are only coyotes, hear weeping where there's only ice cracking on the roof. But the wind doesn't whimper twice. Good Lord above. He was at the door before he understood his feet had carried him. Rifle in one hand, lantern in the other. The fire behind him popped and snapped like it was begging him back. He wrenched the door wide. Cold struck him like a closed fist, the kind of cold that killed calves inside an hour and full-grown men in 3. Then he saw her. Oh no, 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 no. Face down in the drift. A tiny thing, smaller than the feed sacks he hauled from town. Her dress, what remained of it, was the color of ash and river mud. Her feet were bare. Her feet were blue. He dropped the rifle, dropped the lantern, didn't care about either one. Easy now, little one, easy, easy, I got you, I got you. He gathered her up, and Lord help him, she weighed nothing. A sparrow, a ghost. Every rib pressed through that thin cloth against his forearms. Her head lolled against his shoulder like it wasn't fixed proper. You stay with me here? Stay with me now. Don't you dare quit on me, darling. He kicked the door shut behind him, carried her straight to the hearth, laid her on the wool blanket he'd been using as a chair cover, the finest thing in a house where nothing was fine anymore. Her lips had gone gray. Frost clung to her eyelashes. Thomas Hale had buried his wife 11 winters back, buried his boy 6 winters after that. He believed there was nothing left inside him capable of shaking. He was wrong. Come on, little miss. Come on now. Don't you do this to me. Don't you die on my hearth on Christmas Eve. He rubbed her tiny hands between his own calloused palms. Her skin felt like river stone, smooth and cold and terrible. You ain't dying in this house, you hear me? Not tonight, not on my watch. He fetched a pot from the stove, poured warm water, not hot. He knew better than to shock frozen flesh, into a shallow basin. Wrapped her feet in cloth and eased them into the water, bit by bit, slow as he could bear. He'd watched ranch hands lose toes to the frost. Watched the drover lose a whole foot once, screaming through clenched teeth. He would not let that happen. Not to this child. Not to her. She moaned. That's it. That's it now. Keep breathing. Keep breathing, darling. Her eyes fluttered. Opened, closed, opened again. And she screamed. Not loud. Not even what a grown woman would call a scream. A hoarse, wet, terrified sound that clawed its way from a throat too raw to make it any bigger. She scrambled backward, hit the wall, curled tight against the cold boards, staring at him like he was the devil himself, come to collect her soul. Don't. Please don't. Thomas froze where he knelt. Easy, miss. Easy now. I ain't going to hurt you. Please, mister, I didn't mean to. I'll go. I'll go right now. I promise. I'll go. Child, listen. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey. Hey now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She was fighting to stand. Her legs wouldn't hold. She fell, got up, fell again. Still crawling toward the door, toward the snow, toward whatever cold road had spat her onto his porch. Thomas Hale had broken horses his entire life. He knew what a creature looked like when it had been struck too many times. He settled back on his heels, laid his hands flat on his knees where she could see them. Did not reach. He didn't grab her, just spoke. Miss, listen to me now. Listen real careful. She froze, still trembling, still trying to shrink into nothing. It's Christmas Eve, ma'am. Ain't nobody heading out in that snow. Not you, not me. Not a living soul with half a lick of sense. So you stay right where you are. You're not going to... What, little one? She couldn't say it. Her mouth worked open and shut, but nothing came. He understood anyway, and somewhere deep in his chest, something that had been clenched for 11 years went tighter still, then cracked clean through. No, ma'am, nobody's going to hit you in this house. Nobody's going to holler at you. Nobody's sending you back into that snow. You got my word. And around here, a man's word is the only thing worth more than coin. She didn't believe him. He could see it plain as daylight. 5 years old, and she already didn't believe in kindness. He rose slow. Every movement telegraphed like a man approaching a cornered animal. I'm going to sit over yonder at the table. You stay by the fire. You get warm. That's all there is to it. Just get warm. He crossed to the table, sat, kept his gaze off her. A man who'd gentled enough wild things to know that eyes were pressure, and pressure was the last thing that child needed. She watched him a long time, a long, long time. Then, inch by careful inch, her back slid down the wall. She didn't come to the fire, not yet. But she didn't bolt for the door either. Thomas let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. You got a name, little one? Silence. You don't have to tell me, just asking. More silence. Then so faint he nearly missed it. Lily. Lily. That's a right pretty name. Lily Carter. Well, Miss Lily Carter, I'm Thomas. Thomas Hale. This here's my place. Been mine a good while now. Ain't much, but it's warm and the roof ain't leaked since '68. She was staring at the fire like she'd forgotten what warmth was, like wanting it too much might make it vanish. Lily. Yes, sir. When's the last time you ate? She didn't answer. Miss Lily. I don't know, sir. A day? 2? I don't know. Fair enough. He stood. She flinched, her whole body, like he'd raised a fist. He sat back down immediately. I'm just fixing to grab a plate, ma'am. That's all. You stay right where you are. He rose slower this time, moved slower, made every gesture where she could track it. Went to the stove, lifted the heavy iron lid off the pot. Beans, half a plate's worth, maybe less. A heel of bread dry enough to drive nails with. A thin strip of salt pork he'd been saving for Christmas morning. The last piece. That was it. The whole larder laid bare. Snow had come early this year. The drive to town took 2 days in fair weather, and fair weather wasn't coming. The sky had worn the color of a bruise for a solid week. He'd stretched what he had across 2 weeks, and this was what remained. If he gave it to her, he didn't eat tomorrow. Didn't eat the day after, most likely. Didn't eat until the roads opened, and the Lord alone knew when that would be. He stood there holding a plate. Then her stomach growled from across the room, a hollow, gutted sound that had no business coming from something that small. Thomas Hale closed his eyes. Oh, hell. He carried the plate over, set it on the floor a few feet from her, not too close, not too far. Drew a fork from his pocket, laid it beside the plate. Eat. She stared at the food, didn't move. Go on, Lily. It's yours. All of it, sir? All of it. But, ain't no but. You eat. But what about you? 11 years of silence on that ranch. And that was the question that damn near buckled his knees. He cleared his throat, twice. I ate earlier, he lied. Got me a full belly. Truth is, you'd be doing me a favor. Food spoils if nobody touches it. She looked up at him. And in those wide brown eyes, eyes that had witnessed more than any child's eyes had the right to witness, something close to suspicion flickered. She knew he was lying. She knew, and she was still starving. 5 years old, and she didn't know what to do with a kindness that seemed to carry a price she couldn't name. It's Christmas, miss, Thomas said, quieter now. On Christmas, folks share. That's the only rule there is. You eat, and it means Christmas came to this house this year. You don't eat, and I got nothing. So help an old man out. Her hand crept toward the plate. Stopped. Crept again. She picked up a single bean, placed it in her mouth like it might shatter her teeth, chewed twice, swallowed. And then she broke. She pulled that plate against her chest and ate, not like a child, but like a starved creature that had forgotten what human looked like. Fingers scooping, no chewing. The bread gone in 3 torn pieces. She sucked the salt from the pork before her teeth touched it, and she wept the entire time. Not loud, not angry. Silent tears cutting tracks down a filthy little face, dripping onto the plate, dissolving into the beans. Thomas Hale turned his gaze toward the fire so she wouldn't catch what was happening to his own eyes. Slow, darling, slow down. Ain't going nowhere, I promise you. Don't you apologize for being hungry. Not in my house, not ever. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Hey, hey now, stop that. He eased himself off the chair, lowered to the floor a careful distance from her, legs crossed like a schoolboy. Lily, look at me. Look at me, darling. She raised her head, plate still clutched, face slick. Ain't no crime in being hungry. You understand me? Ain't no crime in eating. You're a little girl. You're supposed to eat. That's how the good Lord made you. Mama said I ate too much. Thomas felt his jaw clamp so hard his molars ached. Your mama said that to you. She said I was a mouth. She said mouth is what ruined her. Where's your mama, Lily? Lily's gaze drifted toward the door. She told me to sit under a tree. Said she'd come back for sundown. And she didn't? No, sir. How many sundowns ago, darling? Lily tried counting on her fingers. They were still too frozen to bend proper. 3, maybe 4. I ain't real sure, sir. I slept some. 3 or 4 days. A 5-year-old child planted beneath a tree in early winter, waiting on a mother who had no intention of returning. Thomas Hale, a man who had not wept when his wife Mary died, had not wept when his son Samuel died, had not shed one tear across 11 hollow years of empty winters, felt his eyes scald. He cleared his throat, hard. You've been walking all that time? Since I got scared the wolves was coming. I heard them at night. You heard wolves? And you walked? By yourself? Yes, sir. I knocked on some houses. Most didn't open. One lady gave me bread, but her man said I had to go. A man in a black coat. He said he'd take me to town, but he smelled like whiskey and his eyes was wrong. I ran from him. Good, good, Lily. That was smart. That was real smart. I didn't want nobody to hurt me. Nobody is going to hurt you here. You don't know that, sir. She said it plain, no bitterness, just the flat truth of a child who had learned in 5 brief years that nothing in this world was guaranteed. Thomas didn't argue. He nodded slow. Reckon you're right, little one. Reckon I can't promise what I can't control. But I can tell you this, as long as I'm standing, ain't nothing coming through that door to take you anywhere you don't want to go. That I can promise. Lily studied him, long and hard. The way a grown woman would study a man if a grown woman had been folded inside that small, starved body. Why? Why what? Why'd you share your plate, sir? It was all you had. I saw the pot. It's empty. Thomas opened his mouth, closed it again. He had no answer. Not one he could speak aloud. Because the truth was, he didn't rightly know why. Didn't know why after 11 years of being the hardest man on this stretch of prairie. After 11 years of telling the church ladies to go to hell, the neighbor boys to stay off his land, the preacher to quit knocking, leave a widower to rot in peace. He didn't know why he'd opened his door tonight for a whimper buried in snow. Didn't know why his hands had gone steady the instant he lifted her. Didn't know why this half-frozen stranger felt, for some reason he could not name, like something he'd been missing for a decade and hadn't permitted himself to want. Reckon I was hungry too, he said at last, just a different kind. Lily considered that, her brow creased. She didn't ask what he meant. Maybe she already understood. She set the empty plate down, wiped her mouth on her sleeve. Her eyelids were growing heavy now, that particular heaviness that arrives when a starving body is finally told it can stop fighting. Sir? Yes, Miss Lily. If I close my eyes, will you still be here when I open them? The question struck somewhere deep, somewhere a man had no business letting a question reach. Thomas swallowed. His voice came rough. I'll be here. Promise? On my life, little one. On my life, I'll be right here. Okay. She curled onto the blanket, a tiny thing, arms wrapped around herself because there was nobody else to hold her. Sir? Yeah, darling. My feet are warm. I know, honey. I know. I ain't felt my feet in 3 days. I know. Thank you, sir. Hush now. Go on and sleep. Sir? Yeah, you're the first person in a long time that called me honey. Thomas Hale had to turn his face toward the fire again. A man his age had no right being undone by a sentence like that from a child. She was asleep before he could respond. Dropped the way exhausted things drop. All at once, no warning, like a candle snuffed between wet fingers. He sat perfectly still, watched her. Watched firelight crawl across that thin, bruised, beautiful little face. And something he'd buried 11 years back, something he'd shoveled dirt over and sworn on his dead wife's grave he would never unearth. Something with Mary's name and Samuel's laugh knotted through it, came quietly, stubbornly alive again inside his chest. He didn't know this girl. Didn't know where she'd come from or who'd done this to her or what dawn would bring. Didn't know how he'd feed her come morning. Didn't know a single blessed thing worth knowing. But he knew this, and somehow that was the largest thing to happen to Thomas Hale in 11 years. He laid the log across the fire, sat back down at the table, picked up the whiskey he'd poured before all this began, then set it down without drinking. Slid it away, pushed it across the wood until his arm couldn't reach it. A man with a sleeping child on his hearth had duties that didn't mix with whiskey. He watched her breathe. Wind threw itself against the walls. Somewhere, far off, a coyote called. Snow kept falling, thick and patient, burying the tracks of a little girl who'd arrived from nowhere, kneeling her way across frozen country to knock on the door of the last man who should have answered. Thomas folded his hands on the table. For the first time in 11 long, frozen years, he bowed his head. Lord, he whispered, so soft the fire nearly swallowed it. I ain't spoke to you since you took my Mary. I ain't had much to say, and I reckon you ain't had much to say back. But this little thing on my floor, she's been through enough, you hear me? She has been through enough. If there's any mercy left in the stock you keep for folks like me, save it. Spend it on her. I don't need none, just her. He lifted his head. The fire cracked. The girl slept on. Thomas Hale, widowed rancher, bitter man, stranger to his own kindness, sat up through the longest, quietest, most wondrous night of his life. Watching over a child the world had thrown away. Sun came up the color of a bruise. Thomas was still at the table when it did. Hadn't slept a wink. Hadn't moved except to feed the fire twice and pull his coat a little tighter around the sleeping child. He watched her breathe. That was his whole morning. Her little chest rising, falling, rising, falling. Like a man handed a newborn calf, afraid if he looked away, it'd quit on him. Then her eyes snapped open, not slow, not sleepy. Wide, the way a hunted thing wakes. She sat bolt upright, hand shooting to her chest like she was checking her own heartbeat. Easy, darling, you're in my house. Remember me, Mr. Thomas. That's right, Lily. You made it through the night. She looked down at the coat draped over her, touched it with one finger, careful, like it might bite. Whose is this? Mine. You put it on me. Sure did, because you were cold. She pulled the coat off, folded it, tried to fold it. Small fingers fumbling with wool thick as a saddle blanket. She laid it on the floor at his feet. I ain't earned it, sir. Lily, I don't take things I ain't earned. Darling, a coat ain't something you earn. It's something a man gives when the nights run cold. Mama said, Mama ain't here. He said it quicker and harder than he meant, watched her flinch from it. Hated himself for one full second before he spoke again. I'm sorry, little one. Didn't mean to holler. I'm just telling you, you don't owe me for that coat. Not one thing, you hear? She didn't answer. She stood, wobbled, caught herself against the wall. Sir, where's the privy? Out back. I'll walk you. I can go myself. Snow's deep as your waist, honey. You walk with me or you wait. Those are your choices. She chose to walk with him. He gave her his second-best blanket to wrap around her shoulders and a pair of old wool socks that came up past her knees. He carried her those last 20 feet because the snow was chest-deep on a child, and she went rigid as iron in his arms the whole way. But she didn't fight him. Once inside, she stood in the center of the room, studying the walls like a person memorizing a place they expect to lose. How long can I stay, sir? We ain't even had breakfast yet. Don't you start planning your departure before you've had a meal. There ain't no breakfast, sir. I saw the pot. He stopped, turned. What do you mean you saw the pot? I looked last night before I slept. I peeked. The pot was empty. The bread box was empty. There's a bit of flour in the tin and a cup of coffee grounds. And that's the whole of it, sir. Lily Carter. You spied on my larder. Yes, sir, at 5 years old. She studied the floorboards, so I'd know how bad to feel. He had to sit down for that one. Pulled the chair back, dropped into it like his bones had surrendered. Come here, Lily. Sir? Come here, sit. She approached slow, stopped 3 feet short. He patted the chair across the table. Sit down, child. She sat, hands in her lap, spine straight, a little soldier awaiting orders. Now you listen to me, and you listen good because I ain't saying it twice. Is that plate I gave you last night the reason you think you cost me something? You think you're a debt? Who told you that? Mama? Anybody else? The man with the whiskey breath. He said he could sell me for $4 if I was clean. Said I was worth $4 if I'd quit crying. The silence after that was the loudest silence that house had held in years. Thomas put both hands flat on the table, stared at them, breathed. Lily, I want you to say something for me. Okay. I want you to say, I ain't for sale. I ain't for sale. Say it like you mean it, louder. I ain't for sale, sir. One more time, and this time say it like you'd say it to him. Her little chin lifted, and what crossed her face was not a child's expression. It was something older, something kept alive in the dark far too long. That's right, darling. That's right. Not for $4. Not for 400. Not for a whole herd of horses and a gold watch besides. You hear me? Yes, sir. Now we're going to have breakfast. Sir, there ain't no... There's flour. There's a fire. There's a man who's fed himself off wars. We're going to have breakfast. And he rose and he made biscuits. Flour, water, a pinch of salt, a scrap of lard he'd been saving for his boots. Rolled them flat on the table with an empty whiskey bottle because he didn't own a rolling pin. He slid them into the oven on a blackened iron pan. Lily watched the whole time. Didn't speak a word, just watched. You ever seen a man make biscuits before, little one? No, sir. Mama said men don't cook. Mama was wrong about a good many things, I'm starting to reckon. He said it without thinking, then glanced up, worried he'd wounded her. But Lily just nodded slow, like she was filing that away somewhere important. Quote 3. When the biscuits came out, she ate one. He made her eat two. She cried while she ate the second, and she didn't say why, and he didn't ask. Then the knock came. 3 hard raps, a man's fist. The kind of knock that doesn't ask permission. Lily went white. Quote 4, quote 5, quote 6. She dove, quick as a barn cat, vanished beneath the long oilcloth hanging past the table's edge. Thomas crossed to the door, opened it a crack. Morning! Morning, Hale. It was Sheriff Bill Mercer. 60 years old, grey as fence wire, a good man far as Thomas had ever known. What brings you out in this, Bill? Looking for a child. Thomas's hand tightened on the doorframe. He kept his face dead flat. Quote 11, quote 12, quote 13, quote 14, quote 15, quote 15, quote 17, quote 18. Thomas let a beat pass. Bill Mercer was reading his face. Quote 19, quote 20, quote 21, quote 22, quote 23, quote 24, quote 25, quote 26. Two men regarded each other through a silence that stretched long and deliberate. Two old bachelors on a frozen porch, a canyon of unspoken things yawning between them. Quote 27, quote 28, quote 29, quote 30. Thomas did not blink, did not glance away, did not so much as twitch a muscle in his jaw. Quote 31. Quote Bill Mercer held his gaze. Then, slow as an old hound settling into its patch of dirt, the sheriff nodded. Quote 32. Quote 33. Quote 34. Quote 35. The sheriff touched the brim of his hat, turned his horse, and rode off through the drifts. Thomas closed the door, pressed his forehead against the wood, breathed. Quote 36. She didn't come out. Lily, darling. Nothing. He lifted the oilcloth. She was underneath, shaking so violently her teeth cracked together. Curled tight as a fist, eyes clamped shut. Both hands crushed over her mouth so not a sound could escape. Oh, honey, is he gone? The sheriff's gone, darling. He's a good man. He's on our side. The other one, the whiskey one, Nate. Thomas's blood cooled about 10 degrees. He reached beneath the table. She crawled toward him slow and trembling. When his arms closed around her, she went rigid as a plank. Then, after one long terrible second, she broke. She sobbed into his shirt, soaked clean through it. Gripped 2 fistfuls of fabric at his shoulders and held on like a drowning child. Like he was the last piece of driftwood on the whole river. She looked up, face red and wet and crumpled like wadded paper. He held her until the shaking stopped. Took near an hour. He didn't say a word the whole time. Just sat on that floor with a 5-year-old crying into his shirt. Let his back ache. Let his legs go numb. Didn't move. When her breathing finally leveled, he said softly, quote 47, quote 48, quote 49, quote 50. A long pause. Quote 50 words struck Thomas Hale like a mule kick square to the chest. He had to shut his eyes, had to count to 10, had to unclench every muscle in his jaw one by one so he wouldn't drive his fist through the wall and terrify her worse. She sold you? For $6, sir, and a jug. To him? And you ran first chance. I waited till he was sleeping, took his jerky, ran 3 nights, got lost. A lady helped a little. Then the tree, then the snow, then your door. Lily Carter. You are the bravest child I have ever met in my whole entire life. I was just scared. Sir, brave ain't the absence of scared. Brave is what you do when you are scared out of your mind. And you crossed the country. She didn't answer. She pressed her ear against his chest and listened to his heartbeat, like she was making certain it was still there. Step 9. Thomas Hale lifted his gaze to the ceiling of the little ranch house he'd raised with his own 2 hands 22 years past. Studied the beams, studied the coat pegs by the door where his wife's shawl still hung unmoved through 11 winters. He stared at the corner where his boy's wooden horse still leaned against the wall, dusty, untouched. Then down at the child in his arms. A child the world had discarded like something broken. A child the world now wanted back, not to mend, but to break worse. Lily, sir, you know what a man does when something precious wanders onto his land in the dead of a winter storm. He don't give it back to whoever lost it. No. No, ma'am, he feeds it, he warms it, he mends it. And if the one who lost it comes around asking, he finds out real quick whether they lost it by accident or threw it away on purpose. He paused. And then, Miss Lily Carter, if they threw it away on purpose, he don't give it back. Not for $20, not for 100, not for anything on God's green earth. She was quiet a long while. Sir? Yeah, honey? I never been something precious before. Well, you are now. She pressed her head back against his chest, and out past the window, far down Kingston Road, though Thomas Hale had not yet seen it, could not yet hear it, a second set of hoofprints was pressing slow and patient into fresh snow, coming straight toward the only light burning for miles. Thomas heard the horses before he saw them. 4 sets of hooves. Snow muffled the sound, but a rancher who'd spent 40 winters on this ground could count hooves in his sleep. She went. He pulled the rug back, lifted the trapdoor, handed her the lantern before she thought to ask. Set her down on the ladder with his own 2 hands. 88. He stopped halfway through closing the door. Looked down at that dirty little face glowing in lantern light. Thomas Hale swallowed something the size of a fist. He shut the door, put the rug back, kicked the chair over it like it had always sat there. Went to the cabinet by the hearth, took down the Henry rifle his daddy had carried out of the war. Loaded it, slow, steady, 16 rounds. The revolver on his hip held 6 more. 22 shots between a child and the man who'd bought her. Should be enough. The knock came harder this time. Not 3 reps, a pounding.
Hale, open up.
He didn't answer right away. Let the silence stretch. Let them wonder. Quote 96. Quote 97. Quote 98. Quote 99. Quote 100. Thomas set the rifle in the crook of his arm. Cracked the door 4 inches. No more. 4 men on horseback in his yard. The lead one was fat in the belly, thin in the face, greasy black hair, a mustache that looked like it was devouring his upper lip, eyes the color of dishwater. Thomas could smell the whiskey from 6 feet off. Quote 101, quote 102, quote 103, quote 104, quote 105, quote 106, quote 107, quote 108, quote 109. A pause. Thomas let that hang. Let Nate Pritchard hear how thin his own lie sounded when a sober man repeated it back to him. Quote 119. He started to close the door. A boot jammed in the crack. Thomas looked down at the boot, looked up at the man it belonged to. One of the three riders, younger, thinner. A scar running lip to ear that wrenched his mouth into a permanent sneer. Thomas said, very quiet. Hihadayin shiftetulli, Thomas shifted the rifle just an inch, just enough that the barrel drifted into the man's line of sight. Son, I'm gonna say this once, and I ain't. You move that boot off my doorframe, or I remove it myself, along with the foot inside it. The boot stayed put. Nate. The scarred man spoke without looking away from Thomas. Old man's hiding something, I can tell. Let's just go in. In a minute, Cal, in a minute. Nate Pritchard swung off his horse, climbed the 3 porch steps, planted himself just behind the scarred man. Close enough, Thomas could count the pockmarks on his nose. Hale, we ain't looking for trouble. Then get off my land. That girl's worth $20 to me. I'll hand you $5 if you give her up quiet. $5? That's a month of provisions, old-timer. Weather like this, that's survival. I told you I ain't seen no girl. I believe you have. Then you believe wrong. Nate smiled, nothing warm in it. Cal. Yeah? Go around back. Thomas said it loud enough, the horses flinched. Nobody's going around back. Nobody stepping inside. Nobody takes one more stride on this porch. You got 10 seconds to be in those saddles. Or what, old man? Or I start shooting. Over some girl that ain't yours. Over a trespass, which it is. And the law stands with me on that. Your sheriff will confirm it when I ride into town come morning to report 4 men tried forcing entry to my home. That landed on Nate. Thomas caught it across his face. Just a flicker. The thinking. The arithmetic. A crooked man who'd figured on dealing with a lonely widower, now realizing this particular widower knew the sheriff by first name. The scarred man again. Thomas cocked the Henry. That sound was the loudest thing in the yard. Cal backed away. Slow. His hand drifted toward his hip. Quote 155. Thomas said. The hand stopped. Quote 156. Nate Pritchard held his stare a long moment. Quote 157. Quote 158. Thomas didn't blink. I'll come back with paper, legal paper, saying she's mine. Then you bring your paper and I'll bring mine. We'll let the judge decide why a man's niece ran 3 nights through a blizzard to escape him. Nate's face turned ugly. They mounted up slow, dragging every second like they waited for him to flinch. He did not flinch. They rode out. Thomas stood on that porch with the Henry shouldered until the last tail vanished around the bend. Then another minute. Then one more. Then he sat down on the step. His legs were shaking. His whole body was shaking. He'd held it together for 9 minutes, and now it poured out of him all at once. The cold, the fear. 11 years of forgetting what it felt like to have something worth losing. He sat there on the step in 10-degree weather with no coat, and he shook. Then he stood up. Because a child was waiting in a dark cellar, a shaking man wasn't what she needed. He went inside, locked the door, kicked the chair aside, pulled up the rug, lifted the trapdoor. Nothing. His heart dropped a foot. A tiny voice, far below. She climbed the ladder, 1 rung at a time. When her head crested the floor, he saw she was gripping something. A piece of metal, long, rusted, heavy. An iron poker from the cellar floor. Thomas took the poker from her hands, set it on the floor, picked her up, held her. She stirred again, as the chairs put in his shoulder. He carried her to the chair by the fire, sat down with her in his lap. She didn't ask to be set down. Didn't fidget, didn't protest, just sat there, warm and small and breathing. After a minute she spoke. Yeah, I heard what you said to him. Which part? The part about something precious. You meant it. Every word, Lily. Ain't nobody ever said that about me, sir. Well, they're saying it now. She went quiet a long while. He figured sleep had taken her. But then her voice came again, different, smaller, older somehow. Mr. Thomas? Yeah, darling. You got a wife? I had one. She die? She did. You got kids? I had a boy. He died too? He did. How old was he? 3. What was his name? Thomas had not spoken that name in 11 years. He'd carved it into a piece of wood and driven that wood into the ground behind the barn. Never once let it cross his lips since. Quote 201. Quote 202. Quote 203. Quote 204. Quote 205. And for the second time in 2 days, Thomas Hale cried in front of a child. Not hard, not loud, just enough to blur the fire before him. He turned his face so she wouldn't see. She felt it anyway. Patted his chest twice, solemn, like a grown woman comforting a grown man. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good, so you don't send me away. I'll work. I can haul water. I can feed chickens. I can sweep. I can sleep on the floor. I don't eat much. Lily Carter. Yes, sir. You listen to me now, and you listen real good. Yes, sir. I ain't keeping you 'cause you work. I ain't keeping you 'cause you don't eat much. I ain't keeping you 'cause you sleep on the floor. You ain't a hired hand, child. You ain't a boarder. You ain't a debt, and you ain't a contract, and you ain't something I bought. Then what am I, sir? He opened his mouth. The word came before he knew it was coming. Sir? You're mine, Lily, if you want to be, for as long as you want to be. And if one day you decide you'd rather belong to somebody else, then you'll be that. But till that day comes, you're mine, and I'm yours. And ain't no paper, ain't no whiskey man, ain't no judge in the whole state of Kansas going to unmake. She started to cry. Not the silent tears from last night. This one was bigger. This one had sound in it. This one rose from a place she'd been holding shut her whole short life. He didn't shush her. He didn't pat her. He just held her and let her soak his shirt for the second day running and said not a word. After a long while, she hiccuped, wiped her nose on her sleeve, looked up. Thomas Hale looked at the child in his lap. She pressed her face back into his shirt. She slept. He stayed in the chair. The fire burned low. He didn't feed it. Didn't want to move. His arm went numb beneath her weight, then passed numb into a dull ache, and still he didn't shift. Around midday the snow started up again. He could hear it ticking against the window glass. Watched the light change on the floorboards. Watched shadows crawl across the ceiling beams. And somewhere in that quiet, a thought settled into him. Cold, hard, a grown man's thought. Nate Pritchard was coming back. He would return with paper, or with man, or with a lie thick enough to fool a circuit judge. And when he did, Thomas Hale was going to face a choice. A real one. Bigger than the plate he'd shared on Christmas Eve. Bigger than the door he'd opened in the snow. He was going to have to decide whether he was willing to do more than defend his porch. Whether he was willing to ride. Whether he was willing to go into town, to stand before the sheriff, to stand before the judge, to stand before every last soul in the county, if that's what it took, and look them dead in the eye and say, "This child is mine." Not by blood, not by purchase, because she stumbled out of a blizzard and through his door, and he answered. That answer was a covenant. 11 years he'd been a ghost on this land. 11 years the bitter old widower who never showed at church, never rode into town, never showed up for anything at all. 11 years letting the world slide past him, because sliding was easier than standing still and watching it leave you behind. That was finished now. He looked down at the sleeping child cradled against his chest. Quote _ 233 _ The words barely stirred the air, spoken to an empty room, to a woman 11 years beneath the soil. Quote _ 234 A log collapsed in the hearth. Nothing else answered. But Thomas Hale felt something stir behind his ribs that had been cold for a decade. He felt ready. Out beyond the deepening snow, past the ridge, past the tree line, past the bend in Kingston Road, Nate Pritchard sat talking to a man in a black coat. A man with a ledger. A man who, for the right price, could make a slip of paper say whatever you needed it to say. Thomas woke in the chair with Lily still pressed against him. He hadn't meant to sleep. He'd meant to sit up through the dark, watch the door, clean the rifle one last time. But his body had its own reckoning, and sometime past midnight it had simply quit. Now it was dawn, and the man was watching him through the window. Thomas caught the face for half a second before it pulled away. Grey beard, hat brim, nothing more. He did not move, did not breathe, did not let one muscle betray him. Then came the knock. Quote _235 __. He let out a breath he didn't know he'd been caging. To she went without a word, without a question. She'd learned fast. Thomas pulled open the front door. Bill Mercer stood on the porch. Behind him, a tall man in a black coat, spectacles, leather satchel. Morning, Bill. Morning, Thomas. This here is Judge Wilcott, up from Topeka, riding the winter circuit. Judge? Mr. Hale. Thomas held his ground in the doorway. Can we come in? Thomas? What's this about, Bill? It's about a piece of paper Nate Pritchard walked into my office with at 5 o'clock this morning. The cold hit his chest like a dropped stone. What paper? Indenture contract. Signed and dated. Says a Lily Carter, age 5, was legally bound to him for a term of 10 years by her mother, one Hannah Carter, in exchange for $6 and a jug of corn whiskey. That contract's forged. Maybe it is. It ain't maybe, Bill. That child is under my roof, and she told me herself her mama sold her to him. Only she said sold, not bound. There's a difference, and that difference has the word forged scratched all over it. Thomas, even if it weren't forged, a mother ain't got the legal standing to indenture a 5-year-old girl to a grown man for 10 years. Not in the state of Kansas. Not in any state I ever heard of. The judge's eyebrows lifted a fraction. Quote 251, quote. Quote 252, quote. Quote 253, quote. Thomas stepped aside. Quote 254, quote. They entered. The judge surveyed the ranch the way city men survey ranches. Quick, dismissive, already composing his verdict before his boots stopped moving. Bill Mercer didn't look around. Bill Mercer looked at Thomas. Thomas, where is she? Safe. I need to see her. Why? Because Judge Wilcott has to verify she matches the description on that contract. And because I need to hear her tell it in her own words, not yours. Bill, Thomas, listen to me. Listen real careful. That man walked into my office at 5 this morning carrying paper. Good paper. Signed paper. Witnesses and all. If I don't bring the child before the judge, and the judge don't hear her speak, then Nate Pritchard rides out of town by noon holding a warrant. And that warrant says I hand her over to him, wearing my star, by law. You hear what I'm saying to you? Quote 261. Bring her out, Bill. Bring her out, Thomas. You either trust me or you don't. Thomas walked to the bedroom door, knocked soft. Lily, honey. Come on out. She appeared, small as ever, hair wild, wearing one of his old shirts that hung past her knees on account of her dress drying by the fire. She spotted the two strangers and froze. "It's all right, darling. This here's Sheriff Bill, the one I told you about, the good one. And that's Judge Wilcott. He's come to listen to you." "Listen to me, sir?" "Yeah, just listen." "Listen to what?" Judge Wilcott lowered himself down, slow. Had the good sense not to reach for her. "Young miss, my name is Judge Francis Wilcott. I want you to know you are safe in this room. No one here will hurt you. Do you understand? I need to ask you some questions. And I need you to tell me the truth, even when the truth is hard." "Will you do that?" "What is your name?" "Lily Carter." "How old are you?" "5, sir." "Is your mother living?" Lily went still. "I don't know, sir. When did you last see her?" "She left me under a tree 4 sundowns before I come here." "Why did she leave you?" *277. "'Cause she sold me, sir." The judge's pen stopped moving. "She sold you? To whom?" "The man with the whiskey breath, Nate Pritchard." "For how much?" $6 and a jug, sir." "Did you want to go with him? Did your mother explain what was happening?" "She said I was a debt. Said she owed folks. Said a man come to the house and told her he'd take care of it if she'd give him me." "And she agreed?" "Yes, sir. She cried some, but she agreed." "What happened then?" "He took me, put me in a wagon. We rode 3 days. On the 3rd night, he drank that jug dry and fell asleep. I took his jerky and I run." "You ran?" "Yes, sir. 3 nights running, then the snow come. Then I got lost." "Then I knocked on Mr. Thomas's door." "Sheriff?" "Yes, Judge. That contract is void." "Void, sir?" "A parent cannot sell a child. They may indenture under very specific legal conditions, none of which apply here. What she describes is not indenture. It is trafficking, and trafficking in human beings, regardless of the victim's age or the color of her skin, has been illegal in this country since 1865. Mr. Pritchard's opinions notwithstanding. Whatever paper he holds is worth less than the ink that stains it." "So she stays, Judge?" "She stays where she is safe, Mr. Hale. That is the question before this court now. She's safe here. I see to it that she is." "Judge, Mr. Hale, I have ridden the Kansas circuit for 21 years. I have witnessed a great many things. Children torn from loving homes on account of paper. Children trapped in terrible ones on account of blood. And I have learned, the hard way more than once, that paper and blood are the 2 worst instruments a judge can use to decide where a child belongs." "Then what do you use, sir?" Judge Wilcott looked at Lily. She was pressed against Thomas's leg. One small hand twisted into the fabric of his trousers, like she had already chosen her ground. "I use my eyes." He turned back to Bill. "Sheriff, you will ride into town. You will inform Mr. Pritchard that his contract has been reviewed by the circuit court and declared fraudulent. You will further inform him that I have opened an inquiry into the whereabouts of any previous wards he may have held, and that if he remains within city limits past sundown, he will be a guest of your jail until I determine how long he ought to stay there." "Judge, the child remains with you, provisionally, for 30 days, pending completion of my inquiry and the location of any living blood relatives. At the end of those 30 days, if no legitimate family has come forward, and if the child wishes to remain, I will sign guardianship papers in your name. Is that acceptable?" Thomas Hale opened his mouth. Nothing came. He tried again. "Good. Now I would very much like a cup of coffee, if you have any left. I have been on a horse since 4 o'clock. "Yeah, Bill. I'm glad you opened that door on Christmas Eve." "Me too, Bill. Lock it behind me and load the rifle anyway." Judge Wilcott can void whatever paper he pleases, but he cannot void Nate Pritchard's temper. You hear me? "I hear you." "Yeah, honey. Did they say I can stay?" "They said yes, darling. 30 days, then forever, if you want it." "Forever?" "If you want it." "I want it, sir. I want it right now. I don't need 30 days. Well, the judge does.
But that don't change a thing between you and me, Lily Carter.
Yeah, darling. What if my mama comes looking for me? Honey, I need to be honest with you. Can I do that? Your mama ain't coming for you. How do you know? 'Cause a mama who sells her child don't come back. She just don't, Lily. I'm sorry. I'm real sorry. But wherever she is, she's gone. And she ain't the one who'll be knocking at this door. Lily nodded. I reckon, sir. You reckoned? Yes, sir. I've been reckoning it a good while now. You're too young to carry a reckoning like that, darling. Maybe, but I carried it. Sir, can I call you something different? Like what? I don't know. Something that ain't, sir. You call me whatever sits right, Lily. What did your boy call you? He called me Pa. Pa? Yeah. Was it a good word? Best word I ever heard, darling. Can I have it? Pa? Is it okay if I say it? Yeah, honey, that's okay. That's real okay. Don't cry, Pa. I ain't crying, little one. Yes, you are, but that's all right. I figure some crying's the good kind. Yeah, Pa. You got any notion what you just did to this old man? No, sir. Pa. You put something back inside his chest he believed was dead 11 years. Is that good? That's the best thing, darling. The best thing there is. They sat together a long while. The fire popped and settled. Outside, snow was falling again, softer now, a quiet kind of snow, the kind that covers things without burying them. Then she said it. There was another girl. Thomas went still. Another girl? With the whiskey man, before me. What do you mean, Lily? In the wagon when he took me. There was a little sack tucked beneath the seat. Had a dress inside, red ribbon, real small, not my size. And a doll, wooden, one eye painted clean off. It weren't mine, Pa. I never owned a doll, not ever. So whose was it? Did he say anything about it? About her? He said the last one cried too much. Said if I cried too much, I'd go where she went. Where'd she go, honey? He didn't say, Pa, but he smiled when he said it. And it weren't a good smile. I should have told you sooner. No, darling, you did right. You told me now. What are you going to do? I'm going to saddle a horse. __quote _ 360 _ Pa, Lily, listen to me. There might be another little girl out there. Or there might have been. Either way, the judge needs to hear it. The sheriff needs to hear it. And I will not sit beside this fire while that man rides out of town come sundown. Not without somebody knowing about a red ribbon and a wooden doll with one painted eye. What do I do, Pa? You stay here. You bar the door behind me. You don't open it for anyone but me. Not Sheriff Bill, not the judge, not the preacher, not the Lord God Almighty. You wait for my voice. Then 3 knocks, slow, like this. He struck the table with his knuckles. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks and my voice. Yes, Pa. Anybody else comes, anybody at all, you go down the cellar and you stay. Not for fire, not for water, not for anything on this earth. Not till you hear my voice. Yes, Pa. You got the poker. I got the poker. Good girl. He pulled on his coat, his boots, his hat, loaded the revolver, thumbed extra shells into his pocket, lifted the Henry down one final time. At the door he stopped. I told you something yesterday about not leaving while I'm still breathing. That holds true. I am coming back. You hear me? I am coming back before dark, on my word. Yes, Pa, say it back to me. You're coming back before dark, on your word. Good girl. Bar the door. He stepped into the cold. Behind him, the bar dropped into its brackets. He heard her small feet cross to the window. He did not turn around. He swung onto the old bay mare and pointed her toward town. And he rode harder than a man his age had any right to ride through snow this deep. Harder than the mare wanted. harder than the road allowed. Because somewhere ahead, Nate Pritchard was packing his saddlebags at the livery, and somewhere behind, in a ranch house sealed with a timber bar, a 5-year-old girl had called him Pa for the first time in his life, not 10 minutes prior. Thomas Hale had one task remaining on this earth: reach town, speak what he knew, and make damn certain Nate Pritchard did not ride free out of Kansas, not while a red ribbon and a one-eyed wooden doll remained unaccounted for in that man's wagon. The mare bore down, snow erupted behind her hooves, and somewhere between the ranch and town, past the second bend where cottonwoods grew thick and the road pinched to a single track, a rider sat tucked back among the trees, watching Thomas Hale come alone up Kingston Road. The mare sensed him before Thomas did. She tossed her head, jumped sideways. Thomas steadied her with his knees and one hand on the reins. The other hand, slow, deliberate, slid down to the Henry in its scabbard. "Easy, girl, easy." The voice drifted from the cottonwoods on his left. "Come on out, Cal." The scarred man walked his horse clear of the tree line, rifle laid across his saddle. Not aimed, not yet. "Thought I smelled you in there," Thomas said. "Wood smoke, on a man who hasn't been near a hearth. You're a long way from home, old-timer." "Road's free, reckon it is. You planning to keep it free, or you planning something stupid? Nate said you'd come. Nate was right. Said the old man wouldn't sit still. Said he'd ride for town the minute he got a chance. Said all we had to do was wait on the road." He tilted his head. "And here you are." "Here I am. Where's Nate?" __, quote _ 386 _ town. Other end. Case you rode the south route. He sent you alone? Didn't figure it'd take more than one. Cal, how old are you, son? None of your concern. I'll guess. 26, 27, 25. 25. Thomas nodded once. "Well, I'm 61. Been on a horse since I was younger than you stand now. Been shooting longer than your daddy's drawn breath. And I got something today I haven't carried in 11 years. What's that, old man?" "A reason." Cal's rifle began to move. Cal's rifle did not finish. Thomas Hale cleared the Henry, worked the lever, and punched around through Cal's right shoulder before the younger man's barrel had risen past his own saddle horn. Cal screamed, pitched sideways, his horse bolted. Cal struck the snow shoulder first and did not rise. Thomas walked the mare over slow, dismounted, kicked Cal's rifle 10 feet into the brush. "Oh God! Oh Jesus, you shot me!" "I did." "You shot me, old man." "Cal, listen close. I'm going to ask you questions. Every time you lie, I press my boot into that shoulder. We clear?" "Oh God, we clear, son." Yes, we're clear." "Good. Question 1. Where is Nate right now?" "Livery, packing his saddlebags, riding out at noon." Question 2. The girl before Lily, the one with the red ribbon. "Where is she?" Cal's face drained to the color of old paper. "What?" "You heard me." "I don't. Code 410. Where is she, Cal?" "Code 411. Okay, stop. I had one before her. Name was Annie, 6 years old. Took her off a widow woman over in Shawnee County. Same way. Bought her from a drunk mama. She got away too. Ran into a prairie fire the summer before last. Nate told everybody she burned up in it. Did she? No. Where is she, Cal? I don't know, honest to God. He sold her to a man in Missouri, 2 years back, before I rode with him. That's all he ever told me. I swear it." "You swear?" "On my mama's grave." "Your mama ain't dead. She is too. Cal, you are the sorriest liar I have ever encountered in all my years. But I believe you about Missouri, because a man clever enough to invent that lie would have invented a better one." "Get up." "I can't, Mr. Hale. My shoulder, I think it's broke." "It's broke. Get up anyway. You're riding in with me. You're going to tell the sheriff every word you just told me. You're going to tell the judge. Then you're going to tell them about Missouri. Every name, every town, every date. You understand me? Yes, sir. And if you run, if you so much as twitch the wrong direction, I'll put the next round somewhere a good deal more tender than your shoulder. That clear?
Walk. They rode into town on a single horse, Thomas behind,